Hey everybody, Dana Markson from Rockstar Practice here with Coping Skills Tool Belt. Today is Thursday, March 25th, 2021. I'm very excited to bring to you today Self-Soothe Without Food. So this workshop is near and dear to my heart. As an eating disorder therapist for over 26 years, I teach these skills every day. I am coaching the therapists on our team to find out what clients' coping strategies are and to make sure that food isn't the main one, and also to make sure that there's other self-soothe skills in the toolbox. And I am going to teach them to you today. So I'm going to invite you all to participate with me. Everything that you say is confidential. Nobody can see you. And I really want to invite you to throw yourselves in fully into this experience. So if you would type in the chat, what is your biggest struggle with food and body image? And is there a behavior with food or body image that you would like to change? So you're going to get more out of this workshop if you throw yourself in and participate. And I would love for everybody to just, or as many people as possible, to put an answer in the chat. What's your biggest struggle with food, body, and body image? If you're reading some people's answers, I will read them out loud so that people on the recording know what the questions are. I think we sort of all have felt some of these similar experiences. So somebody wrote cookies, pastries, and chips. So the biggest struggle would be those kinds of foods. And I'm assuming you mean resisting them or eating them in a portion controlled quantity. Stress eating, that's a big one, especially during this time. People have been calling it the COVID-19, like the freshman 15, which implies weight gain during a challenging time or a transitional time. Feeling quick relief for indulging and then feeling guilty, right? The short-term gain of eating a bag of chips feels really good while you're eating it, and then the feeling guilty after. Stress eating or emotional eating, right? Using food as a coping skill. And again, it tastes really good. It works in the short run. If it didn't work, you wouldn't keep doing it. Having lost 150 pounds, then regaining a great deal of it back because of stress eating. Same thing. We need more tools in the toolbox to manage cravings and to manage emotions other than using food, which works again in the short run. I love food, but feel guilty when I gain weight. So loving food does not mean that you have to gain weight. You can have both, and I will show you how. I lost weight and have gained back 50 pounds being in school and internship and being home. Right, so out of your routine, people are saying that they're using food to cope with stress. And also it's different being in the house with a full kitchen, working from home, right, requires more self-control, more planning ahead. And I stress eat chocolate, right? Yeah, chocolate's a great thing to stress eat. It actually has caffeine in it. Most chocolate has caffeine in it. And sugar, which tastes really good. Your body loves it in the short run. Very soothing. And there are some antioxidants in chocolate as well, which help. And then you might have a sugar crash at the end. So thank you so much for sharing all that. And also behaviors that you want to change. Most people say, well, I do a lot of night eating. I start off great and I'm in control. And then as the day goes on, it wears off, right? So really thinking about what are the behaviors that I want to change, or thinking about good and bad foods. And there's too many things for me to go into in an hour. I picked the highlights of coping strategies that I think will help you. One of the things that I didn't do in the presentation that I just want to say is there's no such thing as bad food. I despise the word junk food. I think it labels the food as something that should be forbidden. It's junk, it's bad for me, and let's be honest, we all eat it, right? So why not welcome that kind of food into our food plan? There's nothing that I'm not allergic to that I don't eat every single day if I want to. It has to do with the why and the how, right? If I'm eating in secret or if I'm eating a large quantity of chocolate, more than my body needs or more than satisfying my need or craving for chocolate, that might cause problems later on, like a sugar crash, like guilt, like weight gain, and then I have to then deal with those problems. So when we're thinking with managing food, managing the urge to self-soothe without food, we really need to take a look at why am I using this food right now? And then we're going to talk a little bit about that. Somebody wrote, yes, the morning and afternoons are fine, in the evening and after that are problematic. Often because our resolve wears down as the day goes on, right? We start off super committed, and then as the day goes on, unless you have alternative coping strategies that are really easy to use and right at your fingertips, just like our clients, our resilience wears down, and we might grab the thing, A, that's habitual for us, and B, that gives us the most immediate positive effect, regardless of consequences. So let's talk a little bit more about what we're going to learn today. I'm going to show you some ways to navigate cravings. Your body is going to get cravings for certain kinds of foods. That's okay, it makes sense. Some effective strategies for self-soothing that don't include food, and how to understand and shift your body mindset. Okay, first thing we must do. Is anybody a DBT therapist in here? Can you type in the chat if you are a DBT therapist or if you know or use DBT in your practice or understand DBT? Okay. Well, you don't have to be to understand this. The reason I'm asking is because in DBT, we do something called a behavioral chain analysis. And some of you that are not trained may also be using that. It's really analyzing a behavior. So it's breaking down a behavior. And the first piece of that is looking at vulnerabilities to the behavior. So, for example, if you're working with a 7-year-old or you have a 7-year-old child, being tired or overtired might be a vulnerability, right? Like I know my kids, if it was approaching their bedtime and they weren't in bed yet and they maybe still had a little homework to do, that would be a vulnerability. It's extremely important to understand your own vulnerabilities, the things that make you the person reach out to negative coping patterns when in distress or worried about becoming in distress. So I want everyone to think about, what are your vulnerabilities? So food restriction, these are not all of them. Food restriction, being on a diet, feeling like you're depriving yourself, is a vulnerability. I gave you some examples here. I would love for everyone to think about, what is your vulnerability to emotional overeating, to stress eating, to overeating in general? What makes you more likely to give in to that behavior? So please type your answer in the chat. Okay, so some of the answers are feelings of overwhelm, feeling heavy. That could mean feeling heavy emotionally or feeling heavy physically. Being annoyed with my husband, right? That's a known trigger for many people. Someone wrote HALTS, which is hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and stressed. I don't know if you've heard that before. That's a common saying in AA or NA as a trigger to substance use. Same applies here. Food can be an addictive pattern of behavior as well. Fatigue, restricting what I eat for a while. So the clients that I see with binge eating disorder or bulimia, their number one trigger is restricting their food intake during the day and then compensating for it later on or any time of day. Overcompensation with food, jam-packed day, and way to cool down, right? So using food as my stress reliever. I have somebody that I work with that has a chair, and it's sort of it's like a recliner, and she sits in it at night and watches TV, and always had either a bag of chips or a bag of pretzels or a bag of peanut M&Ms. Something really crunchy was part of that whole de-stressing experience for her. And so we had to do a little ERP, like a little exposing her sitting in the chair with one pretzel or like 5 pretzels instead of the bag of pretzels. And then it was 4 pretzels. And then it was 3, 2, 1. And now she can sit in the chair and self-soothe, maybe have a cup of tea instead or some water. Right? So like breaking the habits are important. That's something to think about. So I really want you all to think about, what are my vulnerabilities? What are the things that make me more likely to use food as a coping skill? Okay, thirsty is one of them. So often if you're having a craving for food, it could be thirst. So always start with drinking something. Water was always your best bet. I like to drink tea. I have a cup of tea here. It really soothes me, keeps my emotional temperature low. I love the smell of it. Drink a lot of seltzer that has flavor in it. Feels really satisfying to me. Tired is another one. If it's late at night and you're feeling tired, maybe it's time to go to sleep. It's probably not time to eat potato chips if that's what's going on for you. Now, if you're hungry, that's a different story, and I'm going to talk you through that in a moment. Okay, other emotions. As mental health professionals, I think we take for granted that we know what we're feeling. And I really want to encourage all of you to check in with your own emotions 4 to 6 times a day. So maybe around every mealtime, right before breakfast. What am I thinking and feeling right now? Am I happy? Food, overeating food, by the way, can be for celebration, for happiness. I feel so excited that I finally got 2 vaccines and I can see my mother. I am going to eat a piece of cake right now to celebrate. That could be a reason as well. What are my vulnerabilities? What are my emotions that are going on that tend to lead me to overuse food? Okay. Effective strategies for managing cravings. So first thing, I'm going to do these one at a time. Okay, so take your emotional temperature. So those of you that are familiar with DBT know these words. I will explain it. I happen to be a DBT therapist, so everything that I think through this lens, and I also think it's really helpful. Wise mind is a DBT term that essentially means I'm having strong emotional urges and I use logic to manage the urges. I don't give in to them. For example, let's say I'm a 17-year-old and I have a big test tomorrow, and my emotion minded urge would be to not study. I think I can remember it, I think I can wing it. And then my logical mind says, well, that's probably not a great idea. I haven't taken a test with this teacher yet. I'm not really sure how it's going to work out. The wise minded thing to do would be to not procrastinate, to sit down and do my homework now, right? So the goal of life for emotion regulation is to stay in wise minds as much as possible. Now, this is an emotional thermometer that's in 25-degree or 25 unit increments. That does not mean that we are in wise mind 25% of the time. Everybody's emotional thermometer is different, and everybody's emotional thermometer is different for different circumstances. So I may have a huge bandwidth for work. So I may not get triggered into emotion minds, and like the yellow may start at 75, right? So I may be able to tolerate a lot because I have great coping strategies. I have a good support system at work. And then I go to yellow and orange and red, maybe could be 95 at work, where I really start having strong urges to just quit or yell at somebody, something like that. The reverse can be true as well. I can have, let's say, I have a high conflict relationship with one of my parents. I could stay in wise mind, which is where I have strong emotional urges to act out, and I don't. I use coping strategies. I could have a low bandwidth for wise mind, maybe 15%. And then I could have yellow would be I'm warming up, I'm revving up. Orange is I'm getting ready to go into emotion mind, and red is emotion mind to behavior. I can go from maybe 10 to 100 pretty quickly if I have a high conflict relationship. Taking your own emotional temperature, it's the same as understanding your vulnerabilities. It is essential for managing self-soothing, right? So you need to know what's going on with you. What are the things that trigger me to go into emotion mind? And what are my coping strategies for that, right? So if I know that having dinner with my high conflict mom, the relationship I have with my mom is high conflict, and it's really easy to eat my bowl of spaghetti and meatballs and take my husband's bread and eat two desserts to manage that. I need to understand that in advance. Wishing and hoping for the best never work with food, right? It's too risky. There's too many internal and external variables. So taking your emotional temperature around situations that you either predict or know will cause emotion minds is essential here. Everybody put down your questions or your thoughts or your concerns about taking your own emotional temperature. The way that I do it, write it in the chat if you would. The way that I do it is I kind of take a moment. I do a 4-8 breath, which if you've been to some of our other workshops is vasovagal breathing, sending a message to your parasympathetic nervous system. It's okay to calm down. There's no threat right here. In for 4, out for 8. Breathe. Think about dinner with my high conflict mom and sort of breathe and say to myself, okay, I'm in charge of my own reactions. I do not have to let my emotional temperature rise. And then we'll talk a little bit about the plan for how to manage the food that's going to be in front of me while I'm already doing that. But it's my job to take my emotional temperature. Questions about that? Put them in the chat if you have any. Okay. Has anybody ever seen this before? Hunger rating scale? Can you put in the chat and let me know if you've ever seen this before? No, no, no. Yay. I love teaching people this. Okay. This hunger rating scale is essential for not stress eating, for not using food to soothe, and it's essential for helping clients with eating disorders as well. So you can see here, 1 is famished or starving. 10 is completely stuffed. Okay. As you can imagine, it would be a goal to never get here and never get here. So what are some techniques that you can think of to not become famished or starving and to not be stuffed? And stuffed is like sick, have to open your pants, feel like never eating again, like the worst possible feeling. And 1 is you absolutely think you're going to pass out if you don't eat something soon. What are some ways that you can think of right now, some techniques, so that you never get number 1 and you never go into number 10? Somebody write it in the chat. Somebody wrote snacks. Very good idea. What else? What are some ways to avoid going from here to here. Eat meals at regular intervals, eating small meals, scheduling eating times. Yeah. Okay. Winging it with food never works, right? We have to have a plan. Schedule breaks in my day so I can see when I'm hungry versus thirsty, etc. So the answers, these are all fantastic, wise-minded answers, is to be intentional about and aware of when it's time to eat and your own hunger signals and cues. Sometimes that's not enough because by avoiding eating breakfast for 10 years, you've shut off your body's hunger signals in the morning. That does not mean that you don't need to eat, right? So checking in, am I avoiding food right now? Am I hungry right now? Is it time to eat? I'm going to show you how to use a scale. Somebody said saving food if you're full for another day. That's awesome. We do that all the time in our house. And we like eating leftovers. So that works for us. Okay. Basic application of the hunger rating scale that you want to, for the most part, stay always between a 3 and a 7. Okay, so you always want to stay between a 3 and a 7 if possible. There's going to be times when that's not possible for one reason or another, but I would say for the most part, I am never below a 3 and I am never below a 7. Now this is actually probably much harder to manage than this, right? So the goal would be to know when is it time to stop eating, and we'll talk about that in a minute. How do we know when this comes up? How do you know when you're hungry? Somebody write in the chat, how do you know when your body's actually physically hungry, meaning it's time to eat? You're not having a craving for chocolate. It's time to eat food though. How do you know? Feeling a pit in my stomach, headache, stomach gurgling. Anybody else? How do you know when you're hungry? Your stomach feels empty, right? Okay. I would say feeling lightheaded. I would say most of those are very hungry. So for me, I tend not to feel any of these related to food. I might have a pit in my stomach related to anxiety, but regarding food, if I'm simply hungry, I just sort of have a very faint but gentle, I feel like I haven't eaten in 3 hours. I eat every 3 to 4 hours because I have low blood sugar, and that's what works for me. And I do that consistently throughout the day. Those sort of lightheaded feelings, to me, that would be very hungry. So for those of you that wrote that, I would encourage you to eat here and not let yourself get here. So what would be a way to discern hungry versus very hungry? How would you know, like, it's not as bad as very hungry, it's just simply hungry? How can you tell? Have some water. So that's actually a really good technique. Drink water, and does it satisfy the feeling? Maybe I'm thirsty. Okay, what else? I would do something cognitive, like say to myself, oh, I'm feeling this sensation in my belly. When was the last time I ate anything, and what did I eat? Right. And if you really focus on, high protein, high fat vegetables and fruit, and more low carbohydrates, what carbohydrates, they burn very quickly in your body, right? And you might need to eat every hour and a half to 2 hours if you're carb loading, versus making sure that you eat protein and fat at every meal or snack. So that's what I try to do, just because, again, I have low blood sugar. Carbohydrates don't do it for me. So I will eat maybe cheese and crackers. Okay. So let's say you notice it's 12 o'clock, Somebody wrote schedule meal time. So I think that's a really good idea. You know, breakfast at 8:30, including X, Y, and Z. That feels really good to me and fuels my body. And this is without excuses, by the way. Well, I forgot to eat or I didn't have time to eat. That's like saying, you know, I didn't have time to sleep. There's time to make sure that you're doing all of this. It needs to be high priority. For me, you know, I have low blood sugar, so for me, I would pass out if I don't eat, so it's not a joke and I need to do it, and this is a high priority item to me. I also eat with intention, so how you eat is really important. Anybody eat while working or eat while talking or eating while watching TV? How are you guys eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Forget about snacks for a minute. What's the scene around dinner? Watching TV, somebody wrote all the time, often on TV or a phone call. Okay. All the time, especially at my internship, I'm very busy and usually I only have a few minutes to eat. TV or in front of the computer. Okay, I am going to challenge you all, especially around dinner. So the thing about dinner is, I don't know how late you all work. You might be working evenings. The thing about dinner is, though, you're going to be going to sleep. That's the closest meal to going to sleep, right? Maybe you'll have a snack too, but the meal, I'm going to challenge you all to just be you and your dinner. Now, if there's other people with you, it'll be you and your dinner and the other people. So no TV, no magazine, nothing that you can see or that will physically distract you. No phone calls with people, just you and the food. The problem is your brain can only think of one thing at a time. It can only occupy one conscious thought. So you can't manage how much you're eating and have your mind on something else as well. So if I'm talking to a friend, I am focused on the conversation. I am not focusing on forkfuls. Okay, does this make sense to everybody? And TV and dinner may seem super relaxing. You're not able to be intentional around what's going in your body. You can't be mindful if you're watching TV, and it might be very soothing. So I want to encourage you either for dinner or for your evening snack to have it outside of TV, phone call. If you want to listen to music, that's okay, as long as you're not the kind of person that gets stuck in the lyrics and mindless. If you can just have it in the background, that's fine. Okay, what are some of the obstacles to actually doing this? Just sitting with you and the food, especially if you live by yourself or you're going to be by yourself. What are some of the obstacles that you can see to actually making this happen? Come on, somebody say it. How do you think it might feel to just be me and my, yeah, some anxiety? Can you say more about what your anxiety would be about? So freaking busy. So freaking busy means taking the time to feed myself is low priority. That's what that means. It takes practice. It does. Okay. Yes. When it's just me and the food, it feels strange to just focus on the food. Right. We are conditioned to not just focus on the food, which is why people tend to stress eat because it's mindless. In order to manage emotional eating, you must be more mindful. There's no way around that. And so sit with you in the food. The best way to do this, it sounds awkward and horrible. It's really helpful is use describe, which is a DBT skill. Let's say you have chicken parm and a salad. I'm taking my knife and my fork. I'm going to cut a piece of the chicken parm, put my knife down, stab a piece, put it in my mouth, put the fork down. And you're actually saying these words out loud to you like you're sequencing something you've never done before and you're giving yourself instructions. And then you really need to taste every bite of the food, right? You give your body a chance to register the amount and the taste and savor the flavor. Doesn't that sound really hard? People give me a really hard time about doing that one because it feels awkward, it feels new, and it will yield amazing results. You will find if you can be super intentional and mindful about what and why you're putting food in your mouth, it's a game changer for you. All right, how do you all feel about that? So you're eating here, you're eating either here or here. If you're using mindfulness or eating with intention, when you get here, satisfied, how will you know? How do you know what satisfied around eating a meal or snack feels like in your body? You all need to be able to identify satisfaction so that you can begin to stop, because the goal would be to stop eating here. How will you know in your body when you feel satisfied? What are feelings of satisfaction around food feel like? Well, it could be cognitive, right? Losing the desire to eat. So, oh, I really had a strong desire to eat 5 minutes ago, and now my desire has gone down, right? I sort of get a calm feeling that comes over me, like my body's being fueled right now. I don't feel shaky, right? My belly feels like it's filling up a little bit. So, this is, I start eating. This is the middle of eating. This is where you stop eating. If you're physically full, you've eaten a few bites too many. The goal is not be full. What happens when you're full is your autonomic nervous system goes a little haywire and it's like, well, I already ate too much. I might as well keep going. This is a trigger. The goal is not to be full. Now, people that have food scarcity growing up are like, well, wait a minute. I don't know when I'm going to get my next meal. I need to get full right now. Understood. And the goal would be to stay comfortably fueled. Food is not self-soothe. Food is fuel for your body. Someone wrote, do you think it's a good idea to try to wait a few minutes before stuffing your mouth? Yes, for sure. So you take 5 bites, you sit, you're taking 5 bites, you sit, you relax, breathe, chill for a minute. Maybe you like your food hot. That might mean you have to go reheat it before you start eating again. And maybe you take a couple breaks. Yeah. If you're trying to shove in a meal in 5 minutes, you're potentially going to have cravings later on because your brain and your belly have not registered that it's been satisfied. The other thing is, I don't know if you all realize this, but 95% of the serotonin in your body is produced in your belly, not in your brain. So if you're using food to soothe and it's, kind of high saturated fat, low protein, low healthy fats food, right? You are not building serotonin. So the goal would be to put high quality nutrition in your body so that you feel comfortably fueled and can move on with the rest of your day. Like this or this, and especially this, if you were a car, this would be like filling up the gas tank to just about the it's like going to a coffee shop. You know, when they fill the coffee to the top and it leaks out the sides? That would be this. This would be even more than that. And this is the cup breaks is so completely stuffed, right? You want to have a little space left at the top. Picture a nice, I like Starbucks. You may all have a different brand, but picture a nice big cup, I get a grande. I don't want to fill that cup to the very, very edge. Then I have to manage it and there might be consequences. When I was a kid, somebody wrote, my father made us chew at least 20 times before putting another spoonful in our mouth. It was hard, but it worked. Yeah, what did it work to do, the person that wrote that? Just curious. And why do you think he made you do that? Because that is the same technique as being mindful. I'm just curious. Okay, so here's one more thing. If you're here, you still have the right to stop. If you're here, you have the right to stop. Here, you're going to have no choice but to eventually stop. You can always tell yourself, I'm not going to put another bite in my mouth. You don't need to self-sabotage and go all the way over here. You can say to yourself, oops, I went one step over comfortably fueled. I am feeling full and I am going to stop now. Questions about the hunger rating scale. If you stay between a 3 and a 7, it doesn't mean that you won't have cravings, doesn't mean that you're not going to eat 2 pints of ice cream. This will help you intentionally get in touch with what's going on. Questions? Okay. Let's move on. The hunger rating scale is really about prevention. This is about what to do if you're having strong cravings. So this is what sort of I hear all day long, especially for my client that was laying in her recliner. She would say, the peanut M&Ms or the pretzels, call my name from the cabinet. Anybody have that going on? I'm laying there, I'm watching TV. I'm not even thinking about food really, or not consciously. And all of a sudden the peanut M&Ms are going, Dana, come eat me. Come eat me. And for 10 minutes, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna, I'll get a cup of water, I'll get some tea, I'll walk around my house. And you sit back down in the recliner, and you're like, come on, I'm still here. It would feel so good to eat me. Let me know in the chat. Anybody have a similar experience? I think we probably all have at some point or another. Or it would taste so good, I'll just start again tomorrow. The start my diet on Monday mentality. And by the way, diets never work. So if you're restricting your food intake and calling it a diet, you're very prone to overeating. Really, the best way to lose weight is with a very systematic and intentional food plan in which you burn more calories than you're taking in, and it includes exercise. Diet, including food restriction of food categories or food types, they never work. Deprivation, for the most part, leads to overuse. Right? This is why people that quit drugs and alcohol cold turkey without coming up with a plan to manage it often end up using again. Okay, best thing you can do when the peanut M&Ms are calling your name is use a tip skill. The tip skill is a DBT skill we teach with every emotional distress client or situation. The first thing that would really help is change your temperature. Write in the chat, what are some quick ways that you guys could change your physical temperature? What are some things that you've asked clients to do? Change your temperature. How would you do it? Okay, so breathing. Yes, breathing could change your emotional temperature. So step outside. Several people wrote run cold water on your wrists. Okay, so take a warm then a cold shower. I like that a lot because then that's up down. Right. I'm one for taking a shower to change my emotional temperature. And for me, if it's cold outside, standing outside, getting a change of temperature and standing there and doing some breathing. So temperature changes your physiology and will change your cravings. And I love ice. I love cold water. Dance around the house with great music. So that will rise your internal temperature. We'll talk about that in a second with paced breathing and intense exercise. So you want to either rise or lower your temperature. So something warm, a warm compress, a cold compress. We ask clients to hold ice in their hands or run cold water on their wrists. So change of temperature helps cravings. It's like shifts the way your neurobiology is. And it's a great, easy technique, easy meaning easily accessible, not easy to apply necessarily. So always change your temperature. Number 2, intense exercise. Somebody wrote dance around the house with great music. Fantastic. It doesn't even have to be great music. You can just dance around your house. I do jumping jacks with clients. I do it myself. In the early days, I used to have a jump rope in my office and we used to go outside. If clients were struggling, we would go outside and they would do a little jump rope for practice. Trampoline, if you're working with a kid or you are somebody who has a trampoline or likes a trampoline. Push-ups, like burpees, any kind of intense exercise for like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, nothing more than that. We're not talking about going to get your exercise clothes on and going to the gym. We're talking about something you can do in that moment. So you notice you're comfortably fueled and now you're having a strong craving to go eat a jar of peanut butter, right? Get up. You could do whatever you think will help you first. For me, it's change the temperature. If not, I'm going to go do some jumping jacks. You can do bilateral stimulation, just moving your arms back and forth, anything that raises your internal temperature. And also, it's a dopamine release. As you know, that's what exercise is, a dopamine release. And often when your body's having cravings, it's looking for dopamine. So it's a really good way to do it. I use this a lot with clients with ADHD. Okay, paced breathing. Paced breathing is what we've talked about in other workshops, is controlling the pace of your breath. So we like to do a polyvagal breath, breathing in for 2 counts and breathing out for 4, or breathing in for 3 and breathing out for 6, or breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 8. So the out breath is double the in breath. That's how it's paced. Okay, that's called a polyvagal breath. It tells your body, calm down. There's no fight or flight going on here. We're cool. I can get through this moment. I can ride the wave of this craving, let it get to the other side. As you know, emotions or urges last a very short amount of time. It's a secondary emotion that causes the distress. So if you just ride the wave, do some 4A breathing, maybe 2 minutes, your craving may reduce. It doesn't mean it's going to go away. It might reduce though, so that you can employ some other skills. And the other thing would be progressive muscle relaxation. So I think you all probably know what that is. I'll tell you quickly. Laying down, sitting down. First of all, I highly recommend moving as far away from as possible from the food source. So don't do this in the kitchen. It'll make it too easy to override, right? Maybe go in the bathroom, maybe go in the bedroom, lock the door. You know what else is really good? Take your clothes off and get in the bed naked. Because if you live with other people, you're not as likely to go down to the kitchen without clothes on. It means there's a barrier and then you have to put your clothes back on. That's the other reason why the shower or the bath can be helpful, is because most likely you don't have clothes on there. For progressive muscle relaxation, you're just going from your head to the tip of your toes, tightening everything and then relaxing it. And you're saying, okay, I'm going to squish my forehead up and relax it, go down systematically. Any questions about tip? Okay, you can type your questions if you have them. I'll come back to them. The other thing that we like to use, and also don't want to rely on this completely. So for me, the other skills are primary, and distraction is helpful and also not the only skill that you should rely on, because it's not building your other muscles. Distractions like avoidance, and that could be good in certain situations, and also you need more tools in your toolbox. So activities that you like to do that satisfy you. So, and also it would be really helpful if they tied up your hands or your mouth. So knitting, which requires 2 hands, is a really effective activity to do. I don't know if anybody knits in here. Crochets, painting, polishing your nails, things that require your hands, activities that don't always use your brain, but that tie up your hands as well. Does anybody have any others that you can recommend? Put them in the chat. Things that distract you. It could be watching television, although I think that can be a hard one. It could be calling a friend. It could be writing cards. It could be sending emails, something that somebody wrote, fidget spinner or coloring books, right? Something that really requires your full attention and you're not used to doing those activities with food. So don't pick something here that you typically do with a bag of chips. Okay, so a distraction activity. Often, again, see if you can do them not in the kitchen or not where the food is. And mix it up a little bit. So get your body in a different position. If you always, eat a donut sitting on this end of the couch, When you're not eating the donut, move to the other side of the couch so that you get used to a new spot, new activity. Somebody wrote meditating and painting. All good, right? And you have to have a little self-control in order to say to yourself, I am going to do this distraction activity right now so that I don't give in to my food craving. I am comfortably fueled. If you're taking your emotional temperature, which is really important, I'm sad that my daughter's not going to get to walk in graduation because of COVID right now. And potato chips aren't going to help that situation. Taking your emotional temperature. I'm feeling vulnerable right now because I had a stressful day at work and I'm super tired, right? Potato chips aren't going to solve that for me. What are some other things I can do? So self-soothe using the five senses, putting lotion on your hands. You can do, some people tell me that cleaning products. Somebody told me today that she polishes her silver, which I think is funny. My mom used to make me do that when I was little. It was really self-soothing. Doing activities that self-soothe and that use your hands and that bring down your emotional temperature. Some other quick strategies. This is really important. Planning all meals and snacks. If you're somebody that is a stress eater or an emotional eater or an overeater for any reason, not planning, like the wishful thinking method or hoping for the best method, usually doesn't work out. Usually the outcome is at some point you're going to give up because it's just not strategic enough. So planning all meals and snacks. So what I'll do in the morning is, especially if I'm going to be leaving my house, because again, I have low blood sugar, I need to have snacks with me. I will say, okay, I'm going to be out from 2 to 6. I'm likely to want 1 or 2 snacks. What am I eating for breakfast? Okay, I had 2 eggs and a yogurt for breakfast. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to have a power shake. I'm going to eat my lunch at 1:30. I'm going to take a power bar or some berries with me. And then for dinner, we're having corned beef and cabbage. Okay, I know that in advance. If I know that I don't have food in my house for tomorrow, I am going to strategize. You know what? There's not enough food for dinner for tomorrow. We're going to be ordering out from Chinese, and we're going to order around 5 o'clock so that it arrives around 6:30. And then somebody wrote, failing to plan is planning to fail. Exactly. The other thing we do religiously, like literally every week, is either Sunday or Monday, depending on our schedule, we go food shopping. So there's never a time when I don't have food. There's never a time that gets skipped because I always want to make sure that I have enough high quality fresh food in my house for me and my family. Prep all your food and meals in advance and stick to the plan without excuses. Okay, sticking to the plan without excuses means that you are staying in wise mind and moving towards your goals, which is managing emotions and managing cravings without overusing food. Plan your coping skills for potentially challenging situations. So, like the example of a difficult parent and you're going to a meal with them. Okay, so you have to plan for that. This may be emotionally challenging for me. In the past, instead of eating a portion size of my chicken parm and my salad, I've eaten my whole plate because it made me feel good. It soothed my emotional temperature because my mom was really pissing me off with her comments. And then I'll just wing it. I'll feel good in the moment. Well, now there's consequences. And also, your neurotransmitters are firing in the direction of overeating during stress. What you want to do is say, this doesn't feel good right now. This is an emotionally challenging situation, and chicken parm won't help me with my mother. So, what I'm going to do in advance is order the food that I want to order, and I'm going to box half of it up right away and have the server take it away and give it to me later. Or I'm going to split a plate with my kid and we'll each get a salad, and I'm going to practice mindful eating. And another skill would be brief vacation, which for those of you that are DBT therapists is the V in improve the moment. Walk away from the table for a minute. Excuse me, everybody, I need to use the restroom. Get up, even if it's in the middle of dinner, your food's going to get cold. That's okay. You don't have to eat it, or you can have it reheated. Leave, Breathe. Bathrooms are great for splashing cold water on your face. Sit in there for a minute and do some breathing exercises. I got this. I don't have to let my plan get derailed just because the situation is challenging. Self-soothe, bring a fidget with you. Everything that we would tell a client or a person with ADHD to manage impulsivity, we can bring that with us, right? Some sort of stress ball. Growing up, I had a little baby rabbit's foot that was attached to my jeans for school. And then I would rub that while I was in school when I felt anxious. Anything like that can be helpful. Okay, you can hold your partner's hand while you're eating, things that are soothing for you. You can maybe breathe in some lavender. You can close your eyes or keep your eyes open and do a visualization, self-soothing. And then distraction whenever appropriate. It would be inappropriate to hold up your phone and get distracted by playing Candy Crush in front of your mother. You want to make sure it's socially appropriate to be doing the distraction, and use distraction if you need to. Any questions about coping ahead, planning ahead for distressing situations or possibly cravings inducing situations? The hope for the best method rarely works. The wing it method rarely works. And one other thing I want to just say, I don't want to get too into this right now. Often, if you're really sort of unconsciously wanting to overeat because it feels good, sometimes we sabotage ourselves by not planning ahead so that we can blame the situation on our own overeating. And I really want to encourage you to get super self aware and be really honest with yourself about that so that you can find another more effective way to manage your feelings, right? Food is not a coping strategy for mood, food is fuel. Real quick, couple of techniques. Looking into the mirror every day and saying, I love you. You're awesome. Your body's so strong and amazing, right? You've successfully managed to not get this virus and stay healthy. Affirmations such as, my legs are strong and carry me where I need to go, instead of saying something like, my legs are huge, they're disgusting. I got this. I can do this. This is a plan that will work for me. One bite at a time, one meal at a time. So you don't need to be effective a week from now. You only have to be effective right now. And the best thing you can do is plan your strategies so that you can be effective. All right. Moving on, I want to let you know one more thing, which is that this is our last coping skills tool belt workshop of this series. What we are doing, I had created last year a DBT inspired skills course for online and in-person therapy. And you can certainly take that course. I'm going to, here's the URL right now. Let's see if I can put this in the chat for everybody. I am going to be offering it. Oh, that worked. Yay. I'm going to be offering this course with small group coaching at no additional fee. So when you sign up for this course for the next module, which will start on Thursday, April 22nd from 12 to 1, you get me, and you also get another person who's trained in DBT. And we are going to do small group coaching so that you can effectively implement DBT skills into your practice, whether online or in person. And so the price of the course stays the same. You're getting 5 weeks of small group coaching with me and another DBT trained therapist. And I want to invite you all to consider joining that. It's really been a labor of love. The course came out great. I'm really helping a lot of people add DBT skills. And you do get 20 hours of CEUs. Most people are already approved for that. Social workers in other states other than New Jersey, credit pending, and you will receive 20 hours of CEUs. So if you have any questions, email me to success@rockstarpractice.com. Anybody have any questions about self-soothe without food, about the course? Yeah. This has been a pleasure, everyone. I really hope you stay well. Blessings for taking this time for yourself. See you all soon. Thank you.